Starting October 1st, 2025 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be live every day for 7 weeks with my Confidence Coming Out course. In the first 3 weeks, I'll cover the free Confidence Coming Out course that you can get online by going to raylifecoaching.com/free-resources, which you'll be able to officially sign up for in 2026, but you don't have to wait. You can join the wait list now by going to that link, raylifecoaching.com/free-resources. I'll take you deeper into the full course, share real exercises, visualizations, and insights you can start practicing right now. And here's the best part. Along the way, I'll be giving you tools you can use every day with journal prompts you can download, confidence exercises you can do solo or with others, and guided visualizations to help you uncover the confidence already waiting inside you. This is your chance to build confidence as a daily practice. So when hard moments come, whether that's coming out as LGBTQ plus, polyamorous, or just learning how to say no at work, at home, or with family, you'll already have the tools to regulate your nervous system. Trust yourself and live authentically. Mark your calendar to October 1st, 2025 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and grab your spot on the wait list today at raylifecoaching.com/free-resources. Today, we're going to talk about polyamorous relationships where authenticity, communication, and consent are the backbone of any connection. The LIAR state, leaving intuition abandoned repetitively, often shows up subtly. We wouldn't even realize, such as disguising as being easygoing, protecting harmony, or needing space and not coming back. So I'm going to have a polyamorous example. Let's say 3 people in some form of a relationship, whether it be a hinge or a triad. They're coming together, talking about their agreements, and making some changes because one of them is having feelings for someone else completely. As a polyamorous person, you might be like, oh yeah, we don't really do that. Agreements can be ambiguous. A lot of the time, a lot of polyamorous people say, oh yeah, we're in agreement, but they haven't actually talked about it. They haven't written it down. They don't even know what is entailed in an agreement because they're not doing it even with themselves, never mind with the people that they're in relationship with. But if you consider that in a monogamous relationship, we make a lot of assumptions. What does friendship mean? What does acquaintance mean? What does a family member mean? And I'm guessing if you asked one person and the other person that they're in relationship with, they're both going to say something that's slightly different. But have they communicated with each other? Probably not fully, especially in monogamy. If you're married, there is an agreement that a lot of us don't even know marriage is a whole nother ball of wax, or maybe a part of your religious beliefs. And not only have you signed with the government, but you've signed with your religious body and your family. So we're going to take those 3 people in a triad or in just a polyamorous relationship when there's more than 2, not a couple, and realize how it gets more complicated the more involved it is. You may think you're on the same page, but may actually not be. That even goes for monogamy. One of the partners might notice something in their body when this comes up, that one of their partners is feeling something for someone totally different. They don't know them. And they're like, oh no, it's fine. I'm cool with that. Totally understandable. I'm not jealous. So therefore I have no needs. And then another keeps managing everyone else's emotion because they're like hyper vigilant and they're really feeling like, I don't really believe what so-and-so is saying. So I'm just going to do all this work to manage it, but never names their own. They're paying so much attention externally. And then the third quietly pulls away, just is like, I don't really need to be a part of this. telling themselves they're good, they need space, and they can avoid the vulnerability. And all the while, they're saying they're in agreement in one way, shape, or form. And each person's nervous system interprets authentic truth as a potential loss of safety. And they each become a liar to themselves and therefore to each other. Their trustworthiness goes out the window, whether they know it or not. Abandoning intuition to maintain that connection is really contradictory. That's just not possible. Even if it means losing integrity, they do that. And that also doesn't maintain true connection. So when they move into what I call the familiar framework, which is the framework of your subconscious to keep status quo or the safety going, if you use that language to speak to your subconscious, use the language of the subconscious to make some changes based on what you truly want, then you can deal with what comes up and speak to the emotions that arise, the thoughts that arise, the ingrained beliefs that arise, and the actions that may follow. Give each other time to suss out what's happening and what's being agreed upon. Let's start with what the familiar would look like if you were to do this. The F stands for firsthand experiences, but what is an experience? What's firsthand? What are you actually experiencing in here? And that goes to the bias key. That's going back to the B of the bias key. If you've seen any of my videos or know anything about my work, the bias key is body sensations and emotions, I, ingrained beliefs, A for automatic actions, and S for your story. But the firsthand experience, it has to come. How do you experience anything? It's through the body. So starting with how you feel in your body sensations and allowing for a culture in yourself, but also in your group or your polyamorous relationship to take the time to do that for each of you. And if you need to be separate and then come back together to do that, that is fine too. If you need to do that in a way that's like, I'm writing it down, I send it to you. There's many ways you can do that. Having a culture of doing that and giving space and time for that and taking a pause to breathe is important. Now, number 2 is the A of the familiar, and A is auditory experiences, individually being aware of what is happening in your head, the stories that you're telling yourself. What story am I telling myself right now? And how is this related to the topic at hand? A lot of the time, it's because of the emotions that you go back to a story that has to do with something else. And if you notice your emotions getting really big, then most likely your story is probably from the past and about something else. Being able to tap into that is really important, but also getting a culture within your community and within your family or your loved structure is really important as well. Because if you can't tell your story to the person that you love and hold space for that when it's needed within limits, then the other person won't be able to do that either. And there's no safety. The M of the familiar is the modeling. So being able to learn how to model, but also learn what was modeled in your past, understand and reflect on all of these things, to know what you come with normally. What is my normal automatic action when this feeling arises and when this story comes into my mind? What do I normally do? Who taught me to love this way? And to look back to self-assess, but also to learn each other's way of doing that. Modeling is action. How am I modeling love? Love is an action, but it can be perceived, and we can perceive certain people's actions as something totally different from what's actually happening or what they're actually thinking and why they're actually doing it. Being able to communicate that is really important, understanding each other. And that's where attachment theory comes in. So we're going to talk about that next. But first, I want you to return to your intuition and what do I know is true even if it's scary. I also understand that intuition gets very confused with fear. Sometimes that fear is why we're doing what we're doing in the first place. Our subconscious wants to keep us safe. So if you don't know the first three things, the FAM, and you're not aware that your fear is triggering that connection, you might confuse your fear with intuition. Once you sort through that, the Confidence Coming Out course does help you do that. The beta test that's coming up in January and all the things I'll be talking about until November 19th is going to help you start to regulate your emotions and get you back to your center. Once you get your nervous system down, you can be able to suss out where your intuition is and where your fear is. This turns a change moment into a practice of secure embodied negotiation, a core value in healthy polyamory or any relationship, really. But embodied negotiation means first you have to know your body, be in your body. First, you have to be in your body. And that's the FAM part. But negotiation means that you have to be calm and you have to be able to create a culture where you can create that calm. So let's first talk about the next part, which is attachment theory and how that relates. So the liar state within each attachment style we're going to discuss and unpack how each attachment style tends to lie to themselves, disconnect from inner truth, and how the familiar framework helps them return to authenticity. The familiar framework is the foundation. It's one of the foundations of my work, but also of how the subconscious works and how we get back to ourselves and our inner confidence and our intuition, our secure self or secure attachment. And if we speak that language, we'll be able to do that. We're going to talk about the attachment styles, and there are 4 attachment styles. We're going to talk about dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant, which is also disorganized, and anxious preoccupied. So we'll start with dismissive avoidant, and the lie that they tell themselves is about independence. The liar behavior, LIAR, which is like leaving the intuition abandoned repetitively, is that when closeness triggers fears of engulfment or loss of control, they leave their intuition behind and go numb. They leave their body behind and all their feelings and distract themselves with something. Their distraction is usually for independent gratification, whether it be food or something they've just been used to doing to distract themselves. They tell themselves, I don't need anyone, or I'm better alone. I don't need that type of closeness to be fine. Even when they're craving connection, a lot of the time they don't even feel that because they're so used to stuffing their emotions down. The reticular activating system highlights threats in dependence. It filters intimacy as danger rather than safety. Their body often knows they long for reliable closeness, but their longing feels unsafe. I think what happens with them is they are inconsistent in their behavior. They're wanting reliability, but they're providing inconsistency. The inconsistency appears because they want to be able to have independence whenever they like. And so if something changes that feels maybe too stable for them and might feel a little bit claustrophobic, they want to have spontaneity and freedom. But for the other person or people involved, it might feel really inconsistent and confusing. Reliability can provide harmony, ease, and flow. Predictability and closeness can feel warm, but for them, it can actually feel smothering and pretty scary and overwhelming and frustrating because they feel like, I don't know how to do this, and still feel independent. So how do we use the familiar shift? You notice firsthand experiences that made self-reliance the only safe option. So self-awareness is key. Knowing that you're actually doing this is key. And then looking back to say, what is it in my past or what I was told was okay or what I should be doing and how did it make me feel? Your experiences. And then being able to take those experiences and understand that you have to get back into your body in the moment, be more present. So although we're doing self-awareness of the past and what you come with, we're also recognizing the present moment. And what happens is when a dismissive avoidant is looking for independence, especially when they're being triggered, is that they are also disassociating from their body in order to not feel. Your first-hand experience is your feeling body. The key is to continuously, not when you're triggered as much, start when you're not triggered, get yourself back into your body and name it verbally. That's where auditory, the A of the familiar, comes in. Verbalize things as much as possible, especially when you're alone. Write it down, record it, verbalize emotions, verbalize body sensations, just name it, practice, and then applaud yourself or have a system of creating positive emotions from these new changes and actions that you're currently doing. Whether it be noticing your body, speaking your words and your thoughts, and recognizing them and altering. We can do reprogramming too, but that's another video. M is modeling. Modeling is really just noticing what you do when you feel these things and think these things. Noticing your body, speaking out loud what's happening is modeling in itself. If you're doing it on your own time, then you're able to not only do it with others, but also be able to receive it from others. But a lot of the time when someone else is saying what's happening in their body, feelings and sensations, what they need, it's probably really difficult for a dismissive avoidant to receive that because they're not able to do that for themselves. Learning more about or being around more people who do this after you've been trying to do it for yourself might be quite triggering, or watching people model good interdependent relationships and reminding yourself of safe situations where you have negotiated, where you came 50-50 or 33% together and you came up with a solution, feeling, oh, wow, we negotiated something and it worked out. I might have not gotten everything I wanted, but felt like it all worked out. Those memories are so important. Reconnecting to intuition. Boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges when you use your words. And that's pretty much the most important thing for dismissive avoidant, is to get out all that stuff that they stuff inside and try to pack down into words, into felt sense, like really voicing what's happening in their body as often as possible. It's going to feel really uncomfortable and unsafe, but do it in your private moments. Stop being so silent in your private moments. Be that person talking to themselves. Next, we're going to talk about fearful avoidant, disorganized. The lie for them is danger, and that there's always danger. Someone's going to sabotage or betray you in some way. The liar behavior is they swing between craving closeness and fearing betrayal. They tell themselves, if I open up, I'll get hurt again. If I pull back, I'll lose them. So it's like this no good place to be, right? Their nervous system alternates between sympathetic activation, panic, fight or flight, and dorsal vagal, numbness and freeze. Their intuition actually knows who feels safe, but their trauma filter conflates excitement with danger. So firsthand experiences where love equals chaos or inconsistency. It's again self-awareness, but ultimately to recognize the times that not only other people, the modeling, but also what has perpetuated that system within you. What came first? What triggered you? And where did you conflate love with chaos and inconsistency, and maybe even feel addicted to it? Recognizing comes back down to when you remember a situation where you had chaos and inconsistency, but were highly attracted to that person or situation, I've had that with a work situation where I couldn't seem to get out of it. It was chaotic and I never knew how I was going to feel about it. I loved it so much, but I realized I had to walk away. It was also addictive. What was it trying to feed in me? Recognize that emotion. Your subconscious says, oh, it's familiar and I'm fine. This is what I'm used to. It can be pretty highly addictive. I think it's like cortisol that happens, and adrenaline can be pretty addictive. Be aware of that and recognize when you're bored, how we might be sabotaging because we're so addicted to that feeling of chaos because we think that's interesting, when in reality, it's actually the thing that's hurting us. Listen to the words that you say or you hear, and you're too much, you can't trust anyone, or that you are starting to be suspicious. Recognize the words. And I think this is really important. Using a journal, writing down your stories, and understanding that your stories are not exactly true. Is it 100% true? To really question that, because